As a quick preface before starting this video, this was the project I mentioned I had been wanting to do. Originally, the project plan was to make like an advent calendar, with a different video being uploaded for the first 24 days of December. I realized I was overly ambitious with that project idea, so I lessened the idea to it being me making a more imaginative story. I was also torn between two options for which story to make. What if the Cold family turned good, or what if Gine was the legendary Super Saiyan? Anyway, this video is going to be like the milestone special for the 100, 200, and 300 subscriber milestones since I never did anything for them. Featured parts of this series will also be few and far between, as it will take me time to come up with ideas for it. I'm thinking the next part will be done for if or when I reach 1,000 subscribers. I know that could be a while from now, but it gives me time to come up with story ideas. Eventually my vision for this is to become like a story like Mozuko X's Revelation F. I don't have many ideas for it though, but if you ever have any suggestions or enemy ideas, please do let me know. Also, sorry there is no good King Cold What If part this week. I just wanted to get this project video out as soon as I could. To start this timeline, we must begin at age 736. As for the idea I have in mind to work, we need a slight change in the timeline at first. Instead of the Oracle Fish having her prophecy at age 739, she has it 3 years earlier. So since Planet Vegeta and the Saiyans weren't destroyed yet, when Beerus hears about the Super Saiyan God, he sets up a meeting with the Cold family. As for where they meet, it's hard to say, but let's just say it's Frieza's home planet. We never see this planet, but I'm going to refer to it as Frieza Planet Zero. In this meeting, Beerus orders them not to destroy the Saiyans, as he received the prophecy of him fighting the Super Saiyan God. As much as the three Cold family members dislike the Saiyans, they would have to accept this for now. From here, Beerus goes to have his 42-year-long nap. However, over time, the abilities of the Saiyans like their strength, natural fighting ability, and that they can get stronger after every battle, along with him never being fully loyal to Frieza started to make the young tyrant paranoid. He was worried that the Saiyans would unite and overwhelm him, or the Super Saiyan legend they talk about would appear to defeat him. He was also worried about the Super Saiyan God that Beerus mentioned rising up as well to overthrow him. So, by age 737, he became paranoid enough to go against Beerus' orders and wipe out Planet Vegeta, which, because of this, we get a similar scene from the Dragon Ball Super Broly movie, where he calls all the Saiyans back to Planet Vegeta, then destroys them. Bardock would still have tried to fire a blast back at Frieza's death ball, but it would have ended in vain. Anyway, as we see in the Cooler movie, Cooler was nearby and able to see Frieza destroy Planet Vegeta, which will come into play later. Regardless, it doesn't take long for this news to reach Beerus, as Whis would have been looking at things happening in the universe and would have seen Planet Vegeta be destroyed. Once Beerus is awoken by Whis, he would be furious to say the least. Not only because his orders were disobeyed, but also because he was awoken from his nap. So, he would quickly arrange another meeting with the Cold family on Frieza Planet Zero. Normally Beerus would erase people that disobeyed his orders, but he's in a hurry to get back to his nap. However, he does destroy their home planet in front of the three tyrants. Then the God of Destruction goes on to warn the three if they so much as destroy a planet again, they will be the ones that are destroyed. Beerus would also have the Cold, Frieza, and Cooler empires abolished as a punishment towards them, and then he promptly leaves to go back to his nap. From here, King Cold is going to be furious with Frieza for basically disobeying the one order they were given. So Cold would disown Frieza since this is all his fault, and he would send him away with nothing but a ship. He wouldn't even send Frieza's men, like Zarbon and Dodoria, with the young tyrant since he'll need their help in restarting his empire from scratch. As for Cooler, he isn't off the hook either since he just watched Frieza destroy Planet Vegeta, and he didn't even try to stop him. So King Cold disowns Cooler as well and sends him away with just a ship, keeping Cooler's men for himself. This leaves King Cold alone and with the shattered empire to try and rebuild. He can't destroy planets anymore or else he'll face the ire of Lord Beerus again. This basically takes away a lot of the power he had over subjects back then, as it was kind of a obey me or you'll be destroyed type thing. So, we'll have to resort to other tactics when it comes to rebuilding his empire, but as of now he sends out a universe-wide broadcast calling for anyone that still wishes to serve him, which, unfortunately for him, not many people will arrive. Just some groups like the Ginyu Force, the Armored Squadron, and Zarbon and Dodoria stay with him, and maybe some soldiers like Qui might arrive. Also, something to mention with the Ginyu Force is that Banyu would still be in it as of now. We don't know when she left it, only that she left it before the Namek Saga in Dragon Ball Z. Regardless, since King Cold can't go about his usual tactics, he must come up with a different way of getting people to join his empire. As much as he hates to, the only way he can think to do this is by trying to go about it in a diplomatic fashion. This will very much be a process of trial and error. He doesn't know what will work to get people to join his side in a diplomatic fashion. Over time, he comes to the process of offering protection and resources in exchange for resources and men from that planet. So, it mainly becomes a very trade-focused empire, instead of an empire focused on conquering. Though his empire is still very small as of now, since it only contains a couple of planets, mainly the home planets of people like Zarbon, Dodoria, the members of the Ginyu Force, and the members of the Armored Squadron. Also, a thought that would still be in the back of King Cold's mind is his desire to retire eventually. Cooler was a failure, so he couldn't select him to be his replacement, which he then selected Frieza to take over as the leader of the Empire. Though, Obviously, because of recent actions, Frieza was even more of a failure than his older brother was. This would still prove to King Cold, in his mind at least, that he was right about Cooler being a failure since he didn't act on stopping Frieza from destroying Planet Vegeta. Regardless, the point is that he would still want to retire eventually and have one of his children take over the Empire for him, but he would have to put that off for now, as he must rebuild his Empire from the ground up first. After all, what's the point in choosing a successor for your Empire if there isn't an Empire in the first place? So, he talks with the few remaining scientists that stayed loyal and told them to prepare for the process of making another child of his. This project goes on the back burner, but it will be prepared for whenever he's ready to put it into action and then retire. Who knows what he'll do after retiring though? Maybe he'll just go and travel the universe to get away from the stress of running an empire. Then for Cooler, after he leaves with his ship, he wouldn't really know what to do. He isn't going to start an empire again, as he doesn't want to potentially have to deal with his father again in any way. He doesn't have a crew to help him anymore, so he could travel the stars just to build a crew, but then what would they do? For now, that's his only idea, so that is what he sets his mind to. However, when he is leaving, he basically runs into another ship that was investigating what was going on with Frieza Planet Zero. Cooler would be curious what this ship is doing there, and with him being much more level-headed than Frieza, he would try to open communication with them, and he would be cordial with them. The unknown ship does indeed answer his attempts at communication, and on the other end was none other than the Galactic King and the rest of the Galactic Patrol. While they wouldn't tangle with the likes of Frieza, it doesn't mean they weren't keeping tabs on the Cold family. Since Cooler is being cordial, and he might stand to gain from interacting with the Galactic Patrol, he would offer to explain what happened with his home planet, though he'd prefer to meet in person rather than communicating through video. While wary, this would probably be their best chance, so the Galactic Patrol would reluctantly agree and allow Cooler to board their ship. While they would basically be powerless against Cooler, they still have guards to escort Cooler to the room where he will meet with the Galactic King. Mainly, the Galactic King would want to know what happened to Frieza Planet Zero, so Cooler would explain what happened with Beerus and his brother Frieza. From there, Cooler would make a proposition to the Galactic King. He knows about what happened between them and Frieza, how they wouldn't tangle with him. However, he proposed that if they let Cooler work with them, they wouldn't have to worry about Frieza in the future, as he is stronger than his younger brother. They would probably be wary about Cooler, since he probably has his own motives, but he does bring up a good point. In their mind, Cooler should be a prisoner of theirs, but they wouldn't stand a chance in arresting him, so they agree to let him help. They are right about Cooler though. He does have his own motives to agree to this deal, but he won't reveal his motives right away. Which, as for what Cooler's motives are, he could see this as a way that he could rebuild his crew and potentially get back at King Cold for disowning him. For example, instead of arresting the prisoners, he could try to convince the other members of the Galactic Patrol to let them start his own little group within the Galactic Patrol, which, this group would be comprised of the prisoners he captures, and he would say it's a way to reform them, instead of just leaving them locked up for the rest of their lives. Though, of course, Cooler would be smart enough to know that the Galactic Patrol wouldn't trust him to do this right away. It would take time to build up this trust, and even then if they do allow him to, he's not 100% sure if he even wants to get revenge on Cold, or just never associate with his father again. This way, he wouldn't have to risk fighting with his father, which is a fight he'd likely lose. Then as for Frieza, he wouldn't take everything that King Cold did to him lying down. He's a petty tyrant, and he has never known anything else except knowing how to run an empire. When he gets word of his father trying to start a new empire, he would want to try and sabotage it in some way. Though, as much as he hates to admit it, his father is far stronger than him, so he might need some help. Since he was only Emperor for about 5 years, there would have to be people out there somewhere that are still pissed at King Cold. Though, for him to look for these people that are mad at his father, he would transform to his final form, so people don't recognize him as Frieza. From there, he starts to scour the universe looking for people to join him in getting revenge against the previous tyrant. So, he would be traveling the stars as of now, trying to avoid Cold's empire the best he could. Though, he would recall how loyal the Ginyu Force was to him, so he would get the idea to check out these planets. However, he would be recognized in his first form on these planets, so this also caused him to decide to transform into his final form, as no one except his father and brother would recognize him when he looks like this. He would have to be cautious in going to the planets the Ginyu Force was from, as he doesn't know what his father is up to. He wouldn't even know what planet his father is on currently, as Cold would have had all channels of communication between him and both of his sons cut off. Regardless, when he gets to the planets that house the races within the Ginyu Force, he would meet the rude awakening that they are still loyal to the Cold Empire. Even when he tries to go to Zarbon and Dodoria's home planets, he meets the same rude awakening there as well. Any of his previous subjects that were loyal to him are now loyal to his father instead. So, this just causes his desire for revenge to burn even fiercer. Then, after leaving those planets, he would basically start to planet hop around the galaxy. He doesn't have much hope about finding people that are angry at King Cold, as they all were basically granted their freedom. So this race is where they basically stopped caring about King Cold, except maybe one. As much as Frieza hates this race, as recent actions would go to show, he might have to look for any surviving Saiyans that disobeyed his orders to return to planet Vegeta. This idea only pops in his mind because why wouldn't any surviving Saiyans be angry at King Cold? He enslaved their race, not long after he transferred control of the Empire to his son. They're destroyed without a second thought. That seems like a good enough reason to at least be unpleased with King Cold, since if he never interfered with them, they wouldn't have been destroyed. Which, Frieza isn't above using people, especially Saiyans, to get what he wants, so he would start to look for any Saiyans left that ignored his orders. Which that's all the Cold family and what they're doing right after their previous empires were dissolved. As for on Earth with Kakarot, things are going basically the same. Grandpa Gohan still finds a young boy in the woods with no one around. So he decides to adopt the boy and he names him Goku. We don't know exactly when Grandpa Gohan found out about it, but at some point he would have found out about the Great Ape to warn Goku not to look at the full moon. Though this probably would have been after Goku hit his head, as he wouldn't have remembered it if it happened beforehand. Next parts will go over things that happened between age 737 and age 749, so what's happening on Earth might not be talked about in the next couple parts. As far as we know, the only thing going on during this time is Grandpa Gohan training Goku, but that's only up until the point he dies, which we were never given a year. Though, in an early draft for Dragon Ball, Toriyama said Goku's grandfather died 2 years before the start of the series, so I'm going to go with that and say he died at age 747. After he does eventually die, Goku would just be living alone in the woods like he's when we first see him before he meets Bulma. I'm getting ahead of myself though, as that didn't happen yet in this timeline. Anyway, the point is, there isn't more to say about the Earth in the upcoming parts until we catch up with age 749, which is about 12 years from now. Which, sorry to cut this part kinda short, it was mainly just giving the background of what will kick off this timeline. There wasn't much more detail I could go into the background of it without going into future adventures I have planned for the Once Galactic Tyrants. Also, what adventures would you like to see in this timeline going forward? If you have any suggestions for any enemies or adventures you'd like to see, please do share them in the comments.